An assumption that guides this channel is that wellness matters. But that's my assumption, and I'm not special. But I have lived a very long, broad life and a well-documented life. So I'm going to go back through those documents. I'm going to create a brief. I'm going to plug that into AI, create a podcast that examines whether wellness really matters. That should pop out, I reckon, from where the sun is, right about now.
I was actually thinking about how most of us treat our health, and a comparison kind of hit me. We basically treat our bodies like rental cars.
Like a rental car. You mean we just drive them hard, maybe ignore those weird sounds coming from the dashboard, and assume someone else will deal with the long-term maintenance once we hand over the keys?
Yeah, exactly. That is the exact mentality we have. We drive it as hard as possible just to get to a specific destination. Usually to hit some economic or professional milestone, like a big promotion or early retirement. We just run it into the ground for output.
Right. Or on the flip side,
Yeah.
we completely obsess over polishing the outside of the car. We want it to look incredibly sleek sitting in the driveway so everyone passing by can admire it. But we never actually bother to check the engine or the transmission.
Right. We rarely treat our bodies like a classic car. The kind you meticulously maintain from the inside out, piece by piece, because you understand that you actually have to live in it forever.
That metaphor, it really captures where modern society is at right now. We compartmentalize our wellness. It's no longer the vehicle for our actual daily existence. It has just become a tool leveraged for something else entirely, whether that is money or social status.
And that tension is really the foundation of today's deep dive. Welcome in, by the way. Today, we are unpacking a profound and frankly highly personal research brief and life reflection. It's titled The Primacy of Personal Wellness in an Automated World.
It's a great read.
It really is. The author is a man in his 50s who recently made a huge life shift. He transitioned from being a traditional classroom teacher to a health and physical education teacher, and he also runs a YouTube channel called the Plog Vlog.
Which is a fascinating career pivot for someone in their 50s, right? It shows this really deep recalibration of what he actually considers important in life.
It really does. And the mission for our deep dive today, for you listening, is to explore an increasingly urgent question that this author poses. As artificial intelligence and automation threaten to take over our jobs, our cognitive labor, and, maybe eventually all paid work, what is going to be left to give our lives meaning and intrinsic self-worth?
Well, the author starts with a core assumption that kind of sets the stage for everything else. He argues that wellness is not merely a lifestyle choice, like it's not a hobby you just pick up on the weekends.
Right.
It is a foundational pillar of human agency. In his view, actively preserving your health and engaging physically with your environment, it provides a bedrock of identity.
An identity that no external crisis can take away.
Exactly. Whether that's a collapsed labor market, an economic depression, or an AI revolution, that physical agency can never be eroded. He actually calls this act of wellness the primary antidote to sedentary meaninglessness.
Sedentary meaninglessness. That phrase has so much weight to it. Let's unpack this, because to understand why this author views wellness as our ultimate survival tool for the future, we really have to look at the present. He identifies 3 mainstream traps that society falls into when it comes to health.
The default modes, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The defaults we slip into when we forget about the classic car. So, what's the first one?
So the first trap he identifies is economic or professional utility. This is the assumption that your self-worth and your societal value are entirely defined by your career title, your formal economic output, and your financial productivity.
So health is just a means to an end.
Right. Within this framework, health is only valuable because it allows you to keep working. You only fix the machine so it can keep producing capital. You get 8 hours of sleep so you can crush the morning meeting, not so your brain can actually heal.
Which is the rental car driven hard to a destination. And then you have the second trap, which is the aesthetic and image-centric pursuit. Here, physical training is just an external signal. It's all about social status, looking young, or purely physical attractiveness.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Because if you're listening to this and thinking, wait a minute, isn't going to the gym and lifting weights to look good still inherently healthy?
A lot of people would say yes.
Right, you aren't alone in thinking that. Why does the source view going to the gym to look fit as a trap?
Well, the source points out that aesthetic pursuits often actively compromise internal physiological longevity. When the goal is purely cosmetic, people will do things that are objectively terrible for their functional competence.
Oh, like competitive bodybuilders.
Exactly. Think about competitive bodybuilders or, modern fitness influencers. They might take risky supplements or severely dehydrate themselves for days just to make their skin wrap tighter around their muscles for a photo shoot. Or they overtrain specific visible muscles while completely ignoring the stabilizers and joint health. The cosmetic appeal takes precedence over actual functional longevity. It's like polishing the hood while the engine is literally tearing itself apart.
That makes the distinction incredibly clear, actually. And that leads us to the third trap, which is the hedonistic or comfort-centric lifestyle.
It was probably the most common one, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is the belief that the ultimate reward of modern industrial progress is minimizing physical exertion. It's all about convenience, passive entertainment, and avoiding discomfort at all costs. We order groceries to our door, we take electric scooters instead of walking 2 blocks, we sit for 8 hours at work and then move to a softer seat at home to watch a screen.
It's a complete biological mismatch. Hyper-rational capitalism actively incentivizes this third trap because, well, comfort is profitable. We've built an entire ecosystem designed to conserve our physical energy and just feed us short-term dopamine feedback loops through screens and convenience foods.
And it creates a massive societal cognitive dissonance. I mean, we inherently know that being completely sedentary is terrible for our biology. Our bodies are literally designed to move.
Right.
But sedentary comfort is the path of least resistance. It is so easy to just sit. We take the short-term comfort despite the devastating long-term physiological costs like metabolic disease and joint degradation.
Yeah. And it's easy to point out these traps from an ivory tower, but the author learned them the hard way. He didn't just study these behaviors, he actually had a front row seat to the absolute extremes of the physical and the sedentary in his own childhood home.
His origin story is intense.
It really is. Intergenerational trauma forged his entire perspective on this.
His father's story is particularly striking here. He was the only son of a famous Sydney rugby league player, growing up in an environment that really idolized rugged toughness, strength, and unfortunately, a heavy drinking culture. His father was immensely strong, engaging in professional wrestling on the side. But for his day job, he was a garbage collector back in the era when that meant literally running beside moving trucks before dawn, hoisting heavy metal bins all morning. He actually treated the job as a form of intense physical training.
A tremendous physical capacity. But despite all that ruggedness, he was known as an incredibly gentle man. The author shares this highly specific anecdote that carries so much emotional weight. He calls it the banana tree incident.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, so when the author was 7 years old, he tried to shoulder barge a banana tree in the yard and actually ended up dislocating his shoulder. His dad teased him about it, and the kid, out of pure embarrassment and frustration, actually punched his dad in the face.
A 7-year-old lashing out.
Yes, exactly. But the father didn't retaliate. He didn't yell or use his massive size to intimidate the boy. He just pointed at the wall and calmly noted that if he had ever punched his own father, he would have been thrown straight through that wall. And then he just walked away.
It's such a powerful moment of restraint. It really showed the author that his father's physical strength wasn't tied to aggression or ego. It was just a capability. But tragically, that immense physical power couldn't protect him from his environment.
No, it couldn't. Despite all that strength and functional fitness, his father succumbed to chronic alcoholism. By the time the author was 9, he barely saw his dad, who was working before dawn and then staying at the pub until late at night. His father eventually died of alcohol-induced liver disease when the author was just 17.
So connecting this to the broader theme, the author learned a harsh lesson very early on. Immense physical potential can be completely neutralized by self-destructive habituation. You can have the strongest engine in the world, but if you pour sand in the gas tank every day, it will seize up.
Such a good way to put it.
And then you have the complete opposite extreme, modeled by his mother.
The contrast is incredibly stark. His mother lived a purely sedentary life. She was on a disability pension, suffering from a whole cluster of lifestyle diseases. After leaving the father, the author and his mother moved into a caravan in her sister's backyard.
A caravan.
Yeah, a tiny caravan. He describes sleeping there and spending his days in a house that just stank of cigarettes, stale beer, and old coffee. The sensory details he provides paint a picture of a deeply stagnant, really toxic environment.
So you have a father destroying a strong body and a mother trapped in a sedentary, declining one. What does a child even do in that environment?
He escapes. I
Yeah.
mean, he found refuge by wandering away from the caravan and into the Royal and Heathcote National Parks. The bushland offered peace, cleanliness, and a sense of adventure. Then, at 12 years old, he gets his hands on a Conan magazine.
The barbarian.
Yes. He sees these line drawings of powerfully built, capable men, and something just clicks in his brain. He begs his mother for some rested weights. By 13, he joins a local gym and is literally squatting more than most of the grown men there.
Oh, wow. So that physical literacy became his social capital.
Exactly. Think of his early gym experience like building an impenetrable fortress. At school, he was teased. People told him he was dumb. But in the gym, the iron doesn't care about your grades. The weights don't care about your broken home life in a caravan. You lift it or you don't.
It's pure objective feedback.
Right. It provided this instant, undeniable proof of his worth. By 13, he's working as a fitness instructor. By 17, he adds martial arts to his repertoire. And by 18, he actually buys his first house. He used physical strength to literally and figuratively build an escape hatch from that toxic domestic environment.
It's an incredible story of resilience, really.
Okay.
Using physical agency to rewrite his circumstances. But as he enters his 20s, he realizes something troubling. Escaping his family's specific toxic habits didn't mean he had escaped society's deeply flawed relationship with health. The traps we talked about earlier, they were everywhere.
Yeah, and we hit what the source implies is a paradox of intelligence and health. So he's in his 20s working multiple jobs, including as a nightclub and rodeo bouncer to get, street experience for his martial arts.
Yeah.
One night, a girl he went to high school with approaches him at the club door. She was one of the popular kids, the ones who used to look down on him. She tells him, "I wish I was like you." And why? Because a doctor had just told her she had permanent liver damage from drinking.
Wow. An eerie echo of his father's fate.
Completely. He looks around and realizes people everywhere, from all walks of life, are actively choosing a downhill path. They are choosing destruction over wellness. Seeking to understand why people do this, he embarks on a massive academic quest. He devours university subjects in psychology, sociology, philosophy, and eventually earns a psychology degree.
But even among these highly intelligent university peers, he sees the exact same paradox, doesn't he?
Yep. Really smart, highly educated people doing objectively terrible things to their bodies.
Right, and to explain this paradox, the author digs into some heavy academic frameworks, but he applies them in a very practical way. The first one is self-determination theory, developed by psychologists Deci and Ryan.
Okay.
This theory posits that human motivation requires 3 psychological nutrients to thrive: autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Let's translate that for the listener into how it actually works in the body and mind. How does physical stewardship satisfy those needs?
Well, think about the mechanics of getting stronger or mastering a physical skill. Preserving your health directly satisfies the need for autonomy because you're in direct control of your body. No one can do the push-up for you.
Right.
It satisfies competence because you see measurable progress. You're tangibly more capable today than you were last month. And the crucial part here is that you get this neurological reward without needing a boss's validation, a promotion, or a specific job title. It completely bypasses that economic trap entirely.
The second framework he uses is embodied cognition. Now, the old way of thinking was that the mind is like a computer sitting in a jar, completely separate from the body. But embodied cognition says no, they are the same system. The mind is intrinsically connected to the physical body's interactions with its environment.
This is where we really have to look at the how. How does movement actually structure emotion?
Tell me.
When you lift a weight or go for a hard run, you are intentionally exposing your nervous system to physical stress. Your body learns to adapt, regulate its heart rate, and calm down afterward. That same neural pathway, that same biological machinery is what helps you stay calm when your boss yells at you or when you face a financial crisis.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So sedentary behavior doesn't just make your muscles weak. It literally diminishes your psychological resilience because your nervous system forgets how to process and recover from stress.
Now, if you're listening and thinking, well, if the psychology is so clear, isn't this just a matter of willpower? Like, if this author could choose to go to the gym at 13 and build a fortress, why can't everyone else just choose to put down the phone and be healthy?
It's a fair question. And the source material actually anticipates this critique by examining its own friction points. If we view wellness purely as an individual moral choice, just a matter of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, We risk a massive blind spot. We ignore socioeconomic determinism.
Meaning the system is heavily stacked against certain demographics.
Exactly. We have to acknowledge the reality of food deserts where fresh produce just isn't available. We have to look at chronic cortisol elevation from living in poverty or disabilities, genetic baselines, and a sheer lack of leisure time.
Yeah, if someone is working 3 gig economy jobs just to make rent, telling them they simply lack the willpower to do a 45-minute workout is incredibly reductive. It ignores systemic inequalities. The cognitive dissonance of society is heavily weighted against the individual.
And, the author wasn't immune to that societal weight either. Despite all his knowledge, his martial arts training, and his psychology degrees, society's expectations eventually dragged him right into the very trap he spent his life running from.
This blew my mind. Approaching his 40s, he basically buys into the cultural narrative of settling down.
And in our culture, settling down almost exclusively means sitting.
Sitting in front of a TV, commuting in a car, sitting at a desk. He started substituting real-world physical adventure for video games, and the consequence was brutal. His wellness crumbled from the inside out. He actually ended up in the hospital twice. Both times, he was absolutely convinced he was having a heart attack.
But they turned out to be anxiety-induced panic episodes, right? His nervous system, deprived of the physical stress processing we talked about earlier, was basically sounding a catastrophic alarm.
Exactly, and this brings up a crucial, critical question based on the source. If the author ties all his self-worth and meaning to his physical capability, doesn't that create a huge vulnerability? Like, what happens when we age? What happens if we get injured? Isn't tying your identity to your physical output just a form of ableism against your own future self?
That is the exact existential crisis he faced.
Yeah.
And it led to his major breakthrough at age 50. He realized he was so strong and deeply conditioned from his youth that he might actually injure himself trying to compete with the ghost of his younger self. So he completely recalibrated his philosophy.
Okay, how so?
He developed a concept he calls minimal acceptable competencies, or MSDs.
Minimal acceptable competencies. Let's give the listener a concrete picture of what an MA actually looks like in daily life.
Right, so MS is a non-negotiable functional physical capability designed strictly for lifelong maintenance and independence. It entirely decouples fitness from ego-driven metrics like how much you bench press compared to the person next to you, or aesthetic metrics like having visible abs.
Oh, I see.
A MACI isn't a 400-pound deadlift. A MACI is the ability to get up off the floor without using your hands. It's the ability to carry a 40-pound bag of dog food from the trunk of your car to the pantry without throwing out your lower back. It's the mobility to tie your own shoes at age 80.
So it's personalized.
Exactly. You decide what functional abilities you need to carry with you to remain independent, and you simply maintain those.
It's shifting from trying to be a high-performance race car to just being a really well-maintained, reliable classic car that runs smoothly every single day.
Perfect analogy, yeah.
With these MAs securing his physical foundation, the author looked at the horizon. He realized that this philosophy isn't just about personal health anymore. It is about to become humanity's most critical survival tool.
And this brings us to the core thesis of his work. If artificial intelligence takes over cognitive labor writing, coding, analyzing, and robotics, eventually automate manual labor, what are we going to base our self-worth on? You know that old saying, if you lose your job, at least you have your health. But what happens to the human psyche when the jobs literally never come back?
Well, the source brings in existentialist philosophy here, specifically Viktor Frankl and his logotherapy, alongside Albert Camus. Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, posited that humans require meaning to endure suffering, and that meaning is fundamentally found through creation and action.
Through doing something.
Yes, through doing. If algorithms take away all the cognitive tasks and professional problem solving, our physical agency becomes our primary, unautomatable avenue for self-authored purpose. You cannot outsource the feeling of movement.
You really can't.
Yeah.
So what is the actionable tool here? The author didn't just go back to the gym to stare at himself in the mirror and maintain his MAs in isolation, right? He started the Plog log.
Plogging. For anyone listening who is unfamiliar, plogging is simply the combination of jogging or walking and picking up litter,
The source calls this environmental and physical coupling.
which is really just an academic way of saying you are tying your daily sweat session to making your actual neighborhood a cleaner, better place. He combined routine physical movement with localized community service. He's out there picking up trash, moving his body, and documenting it to inspire others.
It's brilliant. And when you synthesize all of this, planting trees, picking up litter, maintaining your ability to get off the floor, I mean, none of this is just exercise. It is a localized rebellion.
A rebellion against the sedentary meaninglessness waiting for us in front of a screen.
Exactly. Protecting your physical health and engaging tactily with your messy physical environment provides an enduring source of intrinsic dignity. It's a dignity that no technological shift, no matter how advanced it gets, can ever automate away.
It's about building an identity and a sense of competence that exists completely independently of your utility to the market or some algorithm. Let's wrap our arms around this whole journey for a second.
Now, let's recap.
We've explored how a man used the literal heavy iron of weights to escape the intergenerational trauma of an alcoholic father and a chronically sedentary mother. We saw him navigate the vanity traps of the fitness industry and unpack the psychological theories behind why smart people do self-destructive things.
And we watched him crash into the reality of a sedentary life when he tried to settle down, only to emerge at 50 with a blueprint for the future.
Right. Minimal acceptable competencies and community action like plogging. By doing this, we can decouple our self-worth from our economic output.
He essentially provides a map for retaining our humanity in an increasingly digital and automated landscape.
He really does. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today, just kind of building on this theme. If AI and automation eventually perfectly replicate human intelligence, perfect logic, and flawless professional output, then our physical bodies, our sweat, our muscle fatigue, our tactile interaction with a messy, unpredictable environment that will literally be the only experience we have left that the machines cannot share. Is choosing to sweat today the most profoundly human act you can commit tomorrow? Think about it. Next time you feel your heart pounding and your muscles burning, remember that right there is unautomatable proof that you are alive.
An assumption that guides this channel is that wellness matters. But that's my assumption, and I'm not special.